Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeff Finn, CEO at RealNex, and I'm joined, as always, with Tim Cray, lead developer here at RealNex. Thrilled to have you all on board with us and have you join us for that Cray for January. Record attendance to the webinar this afternoon, which is great to see. Great to see so many have been around for a while, longtime supporters of the organization, and many new subscribers as well. So a lot to cover. Since there's been so much new added over the past year or so, and so many new people on the call today, Tim thought he might want to go back and do some foundations to make sure you're all up to speed on some of the fundamentals that we found that some people might have overlooked in the recent past. So we want to get you caught up on some of the great enhancements, on just to make sure everybody's taking full advantage of the configuration settings and the make your systems are set properly to be optimized, as well as to talk about some of the great enhancements that have been made to deal rooms and market edge portfolio management tools. We've added new space availability reports. Gave you a sneak preview of those last month. A number of new enhancements in CRM, which are really designed to speed up your use of the program, including right clicks to access a number of different utilities and functions, and inline editing, which is coming, and a host of other updates that Tim and the team have been working on. So lots of things that are ready to go already that you have in the system that we want to make sure you're aware of, and some others that are about to come out in pending releases. So I'll let Tim take it away, and I'll ask you to use the question box with any questions that you have along the way, and at the tail end of the presentation we'll review those and see how many we can address before we need to wrap up. So Tim, I'll turn it over to you, and look forward to the updates as always.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. The presentation will take about 16 minutes. So I do these in a video format because that way I can get all of my thoughts together instead of trying to click the mouse and find things. So sometimes it goes pretty fast. I say that so that you don't flip out for a minute and you miss 35 hours worth of work. This is 800 hours worth of work in 16 minutes. So I'm not going to try to go super fast, but you'll miss a point. If you miss a minute, you might miss 5 things. So if you can, turn off your phones, turn off whatever you've got going on. You're going to get a lot out of this. I'm going to do some review, and that's because I've added so many things to the program and updated the interface so many times that I'm sure everybody out there is missing some of the things that are on the main screen. So we'll spend just about 3.5 minutes going over a new feature that we have in the deal rooms. If you don't use deal rooms, 3.5 minutes, it'll go by fast, but you might be interested in seeing them. So let's start with that. Deal rooms are part of Market Edge. Market Edge is included in the RealNex suite in Market Edge, and if you're a CCIM member, CCIM pays for a subscription. We've updated the Document Center to use folders now, so you can basically you could set up your files in a hierarchy like they would be on your hard drive. In this case, I'm taking a deal folder out of my hard drive and I'm dropping it into the deal room. I'm going to set the security level of these documents, which that's how you tell the system who can see the documents, by security levels. And you can see that it added all of the folders as well as all of the files automatically for me. Some of the things you can do with the folders is you can create a new folder. Creating a new folder will just add it on, and then you can use that folder however you want. You can rename folders, so you just change the name of it and it will rename the folder and keep all of the files in it as you'd expect. You can move a folder, so if I wanted to take operations and move it up to the finance section, I can click move and I can click finance and it moves the folder under that folder finance. And I can of course delete a folder. When you delete a folder, it deletes everything in it. So you've got to be careful when you delete things. It's just like deleting a folder on your hard drive. You delete it and it's gone. It'll warn you, but if you don't pay attention to the warning and you say yes, it will take the folder and all the files in it and delete them all. So pay attention when you're deleting folders. It's not just the folder, it's all the files along with it. You can also upload single files. Same way, you can either upload the single file by just dragging and dropping it, and you can set the security level for each file, or you can go to the button at the top where it says upload, and you can select as many files or folders as you want. I'll select these 5, and those 5 will all get automatically uploaded to that folder. Each of these files, these sections, has an action menu, and the action menu works on the files you select. You can select all the files, or you can just select certain ones. This action, I'm going to set the security of these files. So I'm setting all of these from 2nd level and basic to 5th level security just by selecting them and clicking the action menu. I can also set the sign-off date if you wanted to have a sign-off on certain documents. So I've selected 3 of the files. I've said it requires a sign-off, and I'll set the date. That means you have to sign off by that specific date or you lose the file. All of this gets tracked in the deal room, so you get communication back from what's going on from your people that are using the deal room to see whatever you're trying to show them. You can move files from a folder to a different folder just by selecting them and telling it to move them. So if you've used the deal room in the past, we didn't have the folder concept. This is going to really help. We've also updated Market Edge for the packages and flyer updates and outputs. I want to show you one of the functions that we added, which is called a customizable page. So for those of you that use this, you know it generates all these pages automatically. But what we did is we had people say, I'd like to be able to format the page myself. So when you go to customizable pages, you can go to page options and select a format. Here I've selected a big folder on the top and 2 little ones on the bottom. And then within that, you can select what goes in them. So I've selected a map. It automatically plotted the property. I'm going to change it to satellite view. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see what it looks like better. I can move the map around. Now the map's automatic. We get the map for you, so you don't have to mess with that. You just have to decide what size you want it, where you want to put it, how you want to scroll it around. Makes it really, really easy to add a map. You can add paragraphs. When you add paragraphs, you can tell me how many paragraphs you want in a section. I just quickly added some text. That doesn't happen normally. You can change the background and the font color of it. You can change the size of the text. And of course, you can type in anything you want to type in. I just didn't want to waste your time by typing a bunch of paragraphs in, so I stuck them in there. You can also hide the titles if you want to. So if you had 2 paragraphs side by side, that would help. You can create bullet lists. Works sort of the same way. You can have as many bullet lists as you want. And then under each bullet list, you can have as many bullets as you want. So I typed in a couple of titles and some bullet points. You can change the point size of each bullet list. So I'm changing the size of the 3rd one. Now I'm changing the size of the first sets of bullets. Now I'm changing the 3rd sets of bullets. So I have control over each one of these individually. I can change the spacing between the bullets, trying to fill up the block that's there so it doesn't look empty. And changing the point size as well as changing the height, line height, fills up the block. Same thing with the colors. You can set the colors, the background color, the font color. You can also change the bullets if you want to. So if you want to, let's say I wanted to do one of these as a numbered list, I could select that section, change the bullet to numbers, and it'll automatically generate the numbers for you. You can get rid of the titles if you want to too. Another option you have is adding a photo to any of these sections. When you add a photo in, you can upload as many photos to a presentation as you want. and then you just pick them out of the list. You can format it so that you set the photo to fit in the frame. You can stretch the photo, or you can also resize the photo, and then you can move the photo around as well. So a really quick way to create your own package, your own view, your own design. I think there's 22 of them in there now, and I add more and more every couple of weeks. I add more formats to it. Another thing you can do is put in titles. So this particular format has two sections where you might put in a title, and then under the title you can put in whatever you want, a photo, a paragraph, whatever it is. I'm going to drop a photo in here. I'm going to make a second title, and I'm going to show you how we use property fields. So I'm going to select property fields for my second box, and that actually pulls straight from the database. So you can go in and you can see the different fields. I'm setting it up for multifamily right now, and I can see all the data from my database for this particular property, and I can choose which fields get put in that list. I can move the fields around just by clicking on a field and dragging it. I can delete a field out of the list by clicking on it and hitting the little X, put purchase price at the top. I can change the text in the squares. It does not change the data in my database. Maybe I don't want anybody to see the price on this, so I'll say call for information. That on my flyer, that prints out, but it's not changing the price in my actual database. I can add new fields. Here I'm adding units and putting the number of units in. Same deal with the colors. If I want to, I can change the colors. I'm changing the color of both the title and the field section, so it looks like a bottom section for me. So if you haven't played with that at all and you have the Market Edge, it's fantastic. I've had really good reviews on this particular feature because now you can just basically design your own pages however you want them, and all the data comes right from the database. Let's take a look at the CRM. I'm going to do a quick review on the CRM, about 6 minutes, just going over the screens that we have. This is the opening screen, and at the top, we have buttons to take you to the different tables: contacts, properties, companies. We also have a drop down on those. So on the calendar, you can add an event without going to the calendar. You can search for contacts without going to contacts, and instead of just going there and then having to find someone, it pulls them up right away. On the left side, we have different views. This is what we call a list view. This is a map view. It just plotted the people in my database. And we also have the standard tile view. Next to that are some buttons that let you do filters. Now, filters have come a long way. You might have noticed I added filters right to that button, so I don't have to go set them every time. Groups are in there, and types. Below that, we have a menu that operates on the records that are shown in the window. So here I could add these records to a group. I could look up the linked properties. I could export this information to Excel. I can create a report on the information that's selected, global replace, or duplicates. So it's just what I'm trying to show you here is just the fact that you can access this information using these buttons at the top or these buttons underneath them for things like filters. And then there are specific buttons that go with the data you see. And those are the next row of information: groups, link, export, reports, global replace, duplicates. Those buttons work on whatever's selected in the window. And I can select the records by clicking the checkbox next to the record, or on the top left, right in front of group, it has a checkbox that selects all the records that it can see. So you could do a filter, get a certain set of records in this window that you wanted to add to a group, select them all, and then just add them to a group. Or maybe you wanted to do a report. You could pull up the records you wanted in a filter, and then select the ones that you wanted to show in your report. And the program will only use the records that you tell it to use. So it will use whatever's in the query that you set, or if you selected specific records, it'll use those records that you selected. That's a basic review of everything that you've been using for 3 years now, but some people are new. Some people just didn't know that we added things. This next thing that I'm going to show you now is new. And I've been focused for about the last 4 months on not writing new things, just making what we have easier to use and more robust. Listening to our clients, I think we're at like 140,000 or something. And so I get a lot of emails from people. And one of the things that people asked was, can you please make it easier to add things to a record like a history or an event or link someone to something? Not make me go to a different screen to do that. And that's what I've done in this release. And this is live, so you can use it right now. Let me start the video back up again. If you right click on a record, you'll get a menu. Let me stop it again. That menu comes up whether you're in the list mode or you're in the tile mode, or you're in, it doesn't matter what database you're in, you'll get that menu. So that means from here, I can right click, I'm in a contact record, but it could be anything. When I right click, I can add an event, and I'll let it do it as I talk. Adding an event just brings up the event window right on top of what you're on. I can add a history, just brings up the history, automatically links the record to the person you right clicked on. I can create a link and link them to a property or a company or a space. I can attach them, get an attachment and set it up for them. I can go in and add them to a project as a lead. I can add them to a group just by right-clicking and saying group and then picking the group I want. And I can delete them and set up columns. So if you haven't experimented with that, it's all over the program, and there are a lot of menus. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but I'm going to show you a few more. In this case, I'm in split screen mode, looking at a contact on the history tab, and I can see that I have a whole bunch of things I can do here, such as create a follow-up from that history, meaning schedule it on my calendar for me, an event, something I need to do to follow up on a history that was in there. On the attachment tab, I can set a different default, which just changes which picture I see on the screen. You still keep the other pictures, but you can see which one's on the screen. Under companies, companies have contacts. From the company, I can just right-click and add a contact, and it automatically gets attached to that company without me having to find the company. It's a quicker way to add a contact if you have the existing company. I can make a company the owner or the site contact or the agent for a property by just right-clicking on the property or in the spaces. I can make them a tenant in a space by just right-clicking the space. From the property table, go back because that's a little bit fast. From properties, you can have the property itself, but you can specify the spaces that are in that property or the units that are in the hotel or the multifamily. Spaces and units are the same thing, it's just a different tab. So I may have a property that has 3 spaces or 4 units, or I might have a property that has 300 spaces or 400 units. So we needed to be able to have a relation to the property record, not a row, so that you could add, in this case, I've added in about 7 or 8 spaces. Each one of those is a different record, and it's showing, but it's in a different table. I need to be able to go to the space table and work on these units. Maybe I want to do a stacking plan, or maybe I want to just edit the information. So if you right-click in the Spaces tab, you'll see a menu come out, and one of the options on that is View the Property Spaces. And you notice what this does. It actually took me to the space database, and it's filtered You can see by this little orange square, there's a filter on. It's filtered all my spaces to only show me the spaces that are in that property. So now I can quickly work through those, update the square footage, update the rent, whatever I need to do. So the point is, on the right menus, we can't learn that in this webinar. That's not what this is for, but you need to know they're there. And all you have to do to find the menu is right-click your mouse. I'm not sure what it is on a Mac, but there's a way to do it on a Mac too.
It's a right click,
to
same
get the
thing on
menu.
the trackpad. Same, it works the same way.
Okay, great. So you'll just find the menus, and they'll make sense to you when you see the menu. If it doesn't make sense, click it. Here's something interesting to note about right-click menus in general. If you see a menu and it has 3 dots after it, 3 dots means there's going to be a dialog. That's how you can tell if something's going to happen. So, I think I went too fast. Next time you right-click on a menu, take a look, and you'll see some menus don't have anything after them. It just has a word. And other menus will have 3 dots. That simply means there's going to be a dialog coming up that's going to ask you some questions. So if you're afraid to try something, like you right-click and you're afraid it's going to do something crazy, look for the 3 dots, and when you see those, you'll know it's going to bring up another dialog that's going to ask you something, and that way you can just play with it. You really can't hurt the database by experimenting with the right-click unless you hit delete. And if you hit delete, it's going to ask you, do you really want to delete this record? So you should say no at that point. The next thing that I enhanced are reports. Reports have always had the ability to create what we call parameters, but nobody saw them. They were there, just nobody knew how to get to them. So I've changed that, and I'm going to show you how it works. From any record, like a property or a project, or these are projects, you can select the project you want to do a report on. I selected Balboa Office Park. Then go up to the report menu and click Reports, and you can pick the report you want to run. I've picked a report called Marketing by Event Landscape. When I click Select, I get a second screen where I can set some parameters. So, okay, I can change the title of the report if I want. So I just would type in a different title. I can show who it's prepared for. And under prepared for, it says show. If I drop that down, there's an option to hide it in case you don't need that. And then next to that, if I'm showing it, I can type in the client's name. Just a way to do a report for somebody that makes it look like you took time to do it specifically for them. And then I can set, there are charts in this report. I can turn them on or off, or I can select which ones I want to see. And I have project notes. I can turn that on or off. Depends on what are in your notes, whether or not you want to show that. So I'm going to show you a couple of drop downs. I'll change the prepared for to some phony name. And then I'll show you under the counts and pie chart that I have options to select what shows up. And when I select proceed, it generates the report. You notice on the report, I've also added the parameters at the top. So in case you didn't set a parameter correctly before the report ran, you can still change it here. This was always there, but people didn't see it because it was closed. So I just started it open. If you notice right in the middle of that, where I drew that red square, the bottom in the center, there's a little tiny thing with an arrow on it. If you click that, it'll close that parameter window up if it bothers you. But it's good to know what parameters there are in case you want to make a change once the report's been run. This happens on every single report, and it's not going to change. You'll see the parameter dialog first, then you'll see the report with the parameters at the top. You can close that window if you don't like it, and I'll show you how to change the parameters right now. First thing you do in the report is you just change whatever you want. So I'm going to turn off the charts. The second thing you have to do before it does anything is hit View Report. So do you see the button on the top right that says View Report? When you click that, it actually takes your parameters and redraws the report. So it took out all the charts now. And you see at the top, I don't have any charts. It's just Balboa Office Park. If I set the charts back up again, I have to do the same thing. I have to click that button, View Report, to get them back. The CRM Online has a number of different ways you can output reports. It's not like the desktop where all you could do was couldn't do much. This one has a whole bunch of options. So you can send it to any of these things. I'm just going to send it to a PDF. The viewer itself that's showing the report doesn't format things very well, but don't get worried. When you send it to a PDF or something else, it'll be correctly formatted. I'll show you what I mean. So you can see how nicely it came out, like a normal report. Something else that people have asked me about is, how come you got a logo on yours and I don't have one on mine? Let me see if I can show you how to do that, because it's useful to know how to do it. And it's not hard. People just don't know how to do it. You do it only once for your whole team or your whole office. You don't have to keep doing it over and over again. At the top of the program, there's a menu that says Settings. And when you click Settings, if you're an administrator, you'll have an administration menu. If you don't have that, somebody does, whoever's the administrator for your particular group. And in there you have global settings, company settings, report settings, and user management. Under company settings, you set your logo. You click Browse, you go find your logo, you stick it in, and that shows up on every report from then on. You put the information in here, and this shows up. Another place that you should update, and this is individual for each person on your team. That one I just showed you is for the whole team. There's only one company record. So if you fill that one in, there's another one that's useful too. Report settings. You can set the default colors for your reports. So most companies have two colors. You can set whatever color you want. The first one is the background. The second one is the text color. So if I had a black background, I'd want to make the font white. Otherwise, I won't be able to read the text on it. So you can play with these colors to get them to work on your reports. The other place that I was saying is important for each individual is just go to My Account, and everybody will have personal data. It's just your name and phone number and fax or mobile, that stuff. But these show up on reports. So if you're going to print reports out, take time to fill this out one time, and that stuff will show up on your reports for you every time you run a report. Just have to fill it out one time. But you do have to fill it out, because I don't know who you are when you buy the software, so you have to do that part. Okay. This. Second page of the report. All right, let's take a look at some new stuff that's coming out. This stuff is not in production. I'm working on it. So if it blows up, you can have a good laugh. But by the time I release it, it'll actually work. But it's some pretty cool stuff, and it's stuff that I haven't seen in any of the other programs. It's too hard to do. Oh, wait, I spoke too soon. Here's something else I added that's in production. People wanted to be able to add the photo from this page instead of going to the attachment tab. So you can now click the photo up here on the top left, and you can click the add button to add a photo. Or if you have a photo in a file, you can just get the folder and drag the photo and drop it in there and it'll add the photo. You can add multiple photos. So you'll see dots appear as you have multiple photos in there, so you can scroll through them. And then once you have photos, you can click on the photo and you can edit the photo or delete it. That's in production right now, so you do have access to that right now. We've also added the ability to create a V card from a contact or a company or a property, or copy the information to the clipboard. So if somebody says, for me, it used to happen that my clients would say, can you send me the attorney's information, or can you send me the escrow information? And I got tired of typing it in. So I added this feature where you can right click on one of these things and pick copy details. And under there, you can copy it to the clipboard, or I'll create a V card, which then you can email. And when somebody takes the V card, they get in an email, which I did here, and drops it in Outlook. It created this record. This is the record that I just right clicked on. So for me to give somebody information is really simple now. I just right click, copy details, and send them a V card. Or I can, if I'm trying to put it into a document, I can just right click and say copy to clipboard and then paste the information into a document. That went into production yesterday, so you may not have seen it yet, but it's there on the right click menu for the different tables. Okay, here we go. This is called inline editing. What I wanted to be able to do, I didn't want to have to always click on something, go to a dialog like this, get a dialog open, make a change to the record, then close the record, then go to the next one, change the thing. That was a pain in the neck. What I wanted to do was be able to edit it right from this list, right? I wanted to be able to click this field and change the name. That's what I'm working on right now. It's not in production, but I'll give you a taste of where I am. This is I'm starting in the dashboard, so you're going to see the dashboard now. This is a history list. Notice on the top right where I'm starting to draw a circle, there's a new button called Edit Off. That means it behaves the same as it does now. It's just a list. When you click a record, it opens up a dialog and you can make all kinds of changes. If you turn Edit On, that makes the list hot. So if you touch a cell, it lets you edit the cell right there. I'm going to touch a few of them so you can see how it works. These are showing the ability for it to find selected lists. In event type and status, you can't type in anything. You have to pull it from a list. So this editor supports that, and because those are fields that have drop downs already set, it shows you the drop downs. On the date fields, you can either type in the date or change it, or we have a calendar available and a time as well. So you can select those right off of a drop down. In a text field like subject, you can just type something in. And if it's a field that has a pop-up value, you notice this one has a button to the right of the hint. That means that it has a pop-up table where someone has gone to the trouble to add in values that they want you to use in this field. That's supported as well. So if I click that button, it shows me all of the different values from the drop-down that have been predefined for my group. And the reason people do that, and not enough people do, is data integrity. I have a field that's very important for me, and to be able to query by that field, you have to enter the information correctly. If you don't spell something right, and I go to query for it, I won't find your record. So I create a lookup table with the answers that I want. I lock the field so you can't type in it. And then I tell everyone, whenever you put a value in this field, click that button and just pick it off the list. Don't type it in. That way my data integrity is foolproof. Nobody can mess it up. And when I do a query, it works. I started that like in 1985 because I had a guy who couldn't spell attorney. And every time he put attorney in the vendor spot, he spelled it wrong. And when I went to query for attorneys, his never came up. And that's what made me think I need to be able to lock fields and put in values for not just for that, but for other things that I want to make sure people put in the right values for. For example, if I went into this record and went to investors, I was doing investment real estate, right? I want to know what type of office they buy. So if you're talking to someone on the phone, I want you to ask them, you want office, do you want anything specific, or you just buy anything? So I put a bunch of lookups, and you all have these. I actually developed these with CB a million years ago. Let's see if anybody's on here. Yeah, Christine. So Christine works with Lori Lustig. Lori Lustig Bauer was one of the people on the original PCG team that helped me develop these lists. So you got these lists for free. And what these are is they're just values that go into the field for, in this case, different types of office. You can change this any way you want. You can go up here and you can add new values. You can delete values out of it, but it's a starting block. And so what it did for my guys is when they were on the phone and the guy said, well, I really like medical office, they just look through this list and say, anything else you like? And maybe they might say high rise, garden, low, sale leasebacks, anything like that you want. And then they would just check the box. They didn't have to type anything in. And what that does is really important. This particular field has a finite length. It doesn't go on forever. So if you tried to type in this field, Class A, condo conversion, medical office, you'd run out of room really fast. So what we did instead is we created a 2-letter code for each type of office. And the code gets put in there. That lets me put in 50 different types because it's 2 letters. Same for industrial, same for retail, same for multifamily. Every one of these, we went through every one of these and added them all in there. So in this case, you can see I've locked this field. There's no way to type in this field. If I tried to edit that in the list, it would do the same thing. It wouldn't let me type in, but I'd have this button where I could pick them off the list and put them in. So if you haven't done that yet and you have a bigger group, like 4 to 5 people, it's really worth looking into which fields are important to you and locking them. How do you lock them? Simple. Right-click on the label and pick field definitions and say must use pop-up. If you say must use pop-up, they're not allowed to type anything into the field. They have to use that button. Then you just go through, here's another option, comma separated value. What does that mean? Let me turn that off and show you what it means. I hope you're not going to sleep on me, but this is important if you have a team. It's more important than you know. When I click the button now, I don't have checkboxes anymore. I can only select one value for that field. So if it's something like what type of a vendor are they, they're only going to be one vendor, an attorney, an accountant, a plumber. You don't need to have checkboxes for that. But in this case, they can buy all kinds of office. So I want to have multiple values. When I check my fields off, I say must use the pop-up and comma separated values. Now watch what happens when I pull up that same box. Now it has checkboxes. And now I can select the multiple values for the field. So I encourage you to spend a little bit of time looking at your fields and what's important to you and do some work locking them down so that you can have some integrity with your data. It's simple to do. And it took me months to write all that stuff. It's useful stuff. Okay, so that was this field where I was just showing you the bump, and I'll show you the logical fields. It's just, there are no excitement. They just click or unclick. But what's important about this is when it's done, when it's in production, it will help you tremendously when you're trying to update a list of things. Let's say I'm just trying to update the expiration dates for tenants, or I'm trying to update units, and I want to just get them in a grid, and I just want to go right down the field and change them right in a row, boom, 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 kind of like Excel. You know how Excel's so handy for that. You won't find this in other programs. I don't guess, it's really hard to do. I've spent almost 100 hours on it already. Something else that I just worked on this morning, and it'll be live pretty soon, is changing the colors of the fields. I had certain fields that were really important to me, and I wanted them to stand out over all the other fields on the screen because there's a lot of fields in the system. We track a lot of data. So how I did that was I let you change the background color of the label. So if you look in this, you'll see what I mean. I'm going to open up a contact, and I'm going to go to the tenant tab. And on the tenant tab, I've changed the color of 2 of the fields. Let's see if you see them. Boom. Do you see what I mean? Immediately, you saw floor and newsletter. Didn't have to search for them at all. Now, if you start changing the color of every single field on the screen, it defeats the purpose of this. Then it just looks like a Christmas tree and nobody could find anything again. But if you're diligent about which fields you change, the important ones, they stand out. So when I'm on the phone with somebody, I'll look at those fields and see if I'm out. I mean, they picked a dumb field, floor. That's not going to change, but maybe newsletter. And I'm in my meeting, and Neil Sherman says, "Guys, we only have 50 people looking at our newsletter. What's the deal?" Ask people if they want the newsletter and check the box. So by highlighting that, it stands out in my mind to say, hey, I noticed you don't receive our newsletter. Would you like to get it? How do I know they don't receive it? Because they're not checked. If they were checked, I wouldn't have to ask them. I'd just go on. But that'll be out sometime this week. This is Thursday. It'll probably be out Monday or Tuesday, being able to color the fields. Let me show you how to do it. It's going to be very simple. Just right-click on the field, on the label, and pick field definitions. And in there, you'll see a new box for color. You can click the little button and set the color, and that'll change the color of the field. You can do that for any field in the system, whether it's a logical field or a character field, doesn't matter what it is. Just right-click on the field, and you can set the background color of it. And if you're judicious about it and you really think about it, you can come up with a good set of fields that are very important and really help your people, your team, get the information you need and not just get lost in a whole bunch of records. This is, if you haven't seen this, if you have the desktop, you haven't seen it because we don't have it. But this is what I call split screen view. Split screen view, you have to have a big monitor to use it. You can't do it on a phone. But if you have a bigger monitor, let me show you how easy it is to use this. Again, this is something that's been in the program for a while, but if you haven't noticed it yet, it's really useful. These are the views that people are used to: list view and tile view. But you can't do anything with them. I can see a record, but I can't make any changes to it. So over here on the right, hidden in the very corner next to columns, there's a little arrow. And when I click that, it opens up an editable record. So the record is following me as I go through the list, but these are all fields I can edit now. So I don't have to open up a dialog. I can just go here and make a change and then go to the next record and make a change. I can get to all of the information. Every tab's in here. There's 2 sections for contacts because there's so many tabs, but every tab is in here. And that's available in every single one of these records. Jeff, how are we doing? I know I've been talking a long time. I get carried away, and then people get angry that I took too long.
You've done so much. You have so much to share. It's great. We are about 4:45 here Eastern time, so we want to try to get wrapped up. But there are a bunch of questions, so I will see if we can address many of them while we're waiting. I also want to mention to people before anybody scoots that we're starting a new thing based on some feedback that we've had recently, that there's such a hunger for more information like this, and not just this type of what's new with the product, but actual use cases of how people are using the solution to make more money. So we're starting a user group, and we'll have the first session coming up next month led by Adam von Romer. He's agreed to give us a case study of how he's used the platform to win he made a presentation to a seller that didn't want to sell. He was able to, to create this compelling case with our presentation and comps manager to generate a $5 million listing and close a sale, generate $125,000. And that it would not have happened without the magic of Market Edge. So the comps manager, the analytics, and the compelling case that can be made with the presentation tool, it will be showcased next month. So we're going to ask, we'll invite all of you and others to join us for that and future user group case studies. And if any of you have a case study that you'd like to share and a particular application within the system that you're really proficient at and making the most of, please let me know. Send me a note, and we'll love to get you in front of the audience in a future forum. So I think it's going to be really beneficial new program that we're going to start out doing monthly, like we're doing with Cray Cray. Cray Cray will continue to roll on with the new features of the month, and the user group will start to talk about applied use cases with clients sharing some of their best practices. Okay, quick case study, maybe 15 minutes, then an interactive discussion to learn more about how to take advantage of the tools. So
I see some really heavyweights in this list.
There's great list. So you're seeing the questions.
They don't probably have time to do a webinar, but some of these people would be awesome to do a webinar. They'd get more people than I do coming to hear them. Well, why don't
you let me know who you know, and we'll start inviting them in if they don't raise their hand. So,
well, I know all the people on this list, but some of them are really heavyweights. Yeah, I could see the questions. Hi, Tim and Jeff. Yeah, we don't want that one.
Dennis is in with a quick update. How do you update the comps? I think if you can go into the comps manager and just show how to add an update.
How quickly could you add price or square foot to multi-property sale comp report? You can't add any fields to the report. I have to do them. So if something's missing, like the price per square foot, just email me, Dennis, and that should be in there. That was dumb of me to leave it out. Your bill, I just put them in the report. If they're missing and they make sense, I'll just add them in. So I'll get those two in for you.
Perfect.
Tonight, and you can use them tomorrow. What are you doing to improve syncing? What kind of syncing do you mean, Jose? I'm not sure. We have so many different syncs. We have Outlook, email, calendar, events. We have Gmail, email, calendar, events. We have desktop. I guess just write back and tell me what you're trying to sync. Deal room. Upon completion of a deal, what is the best way to copy the completed transaction to your company server folder? So designated broker, keep a copy. What I showed you today was the folders in the deal room. And what do you want to copy though? Do you want everything, like all of the files, every person? Or what do you want?
What I suggested, the guy use the deal room as his compliance folder if that's possible. So, but if he needs to move that folder with all of the documentation, the closing documents that are needed for a closed deal file, that's the question.
I'll have to think about that guy, because people have 400 or 500 files in these things. It could be 15, 20 gigabytes. I'd have to download all that. I'm not sure about bandwidth for that. I'll have to think about that one. I don't have a way to do it right now. You can hide a deal room. You can delete a deal room. And of course, you can just leave the deal room there. But I don't have a way to offload a deal room. And I don't know what format I'd use either that somebody could actually use, because there's a lot of stuff in there. You have all your participants, all your deals.
Something else that's coming, Guy, maybe we can talk, and for everybody's benefit, we are working to integrate back office deal management and commission management, which will specifically store and manage all the closing documentation. So it might be that that's the best case, and we just need to think about, Tim, some flagging of files that if they've already been uploaded to deal room, that they could be moved over as part of your integration there. Otherwise, it'll be part of another workflow. But we'll make sure that there's a closed deal file component to manage compliance. A lot of people are just doing that in CRM currently. You can do it just with the deal room in Market Edge by creating a folder there, moving all of your closed deal files into one of the folders that Tim showed you would be one way to do it and use. So there'll be different ways to do it, but I think this back office commission management piece will ultimately be the final resting place and best place for that.
I see lots of questions about deal room, so that's good. I'm glad I hit a nerve. We are rewriting the deal room. What I showed you is just adding folders. That didn't require a rewrite, but the rewrite of the deal room is going to go and is going to include client interaction. So clients will be able to log in and be able to send you messages. You'll be able to message them. Those messages will show up on the app on your phone, as well as in the when you log into our system, there'll be a landing page that will have all of your messages from your listings, your deal rooms, wherever they are, and you'll be able to share information with those clients based on a setting, just like you can in the deal room now, where you can say, I want to share these documents with this guy, give him an access level of 3, and you can see all the documents that are in level 3. It'll also, the rewrite will also be one login for a client, not different logins for every deal room. They'll log in with their email and their password, and they'll just see a list of the deal rooms they're in, and they can select which one they want to get into. The rewrite's going to take about 2 months, though. There's a lot of work that has to be done. It will support teams. It will support owners, just like the CRM does, so that a team can use a deal room and see what's going on. Right now, it's really for one person, and the team is limited to what they can do. But you'll see that coming over the next 2 months, because it's going to be a lot of work. And next month I'll have more information to show you as I go through it. Let's see. Did the merge feature from 2 contacts? So we have duplicate merge now, but what Nick's asking is, can I take, like, let's say that these 2 people here, Bill Smith and Bing Cherry, pretend they were the same person. He's asking if I can take Bing Cherry and drop him on Bill Smith and make them one. We don't have that capability yet. You can do it, but you'd have to select them and then go to the duplicate checker to merge them. So you can't just do it by dragging. You have to do it through the duplicate checker. We have it on a list of things to do, but I haven't worked on it yet. Let's see. What about missing fields from marketing reports, like I have been asking? I don't know what fields you mean, Nick. The marketing reports, I have 8 of them now. They come from the general fields that people use. Now, we oftentimes get people that call and say, I need a report that shows fields that nobody else wants. And we tell them that's called a custom report, and you pay by the hour. So if you want a custom report, you can write in what you want the report to look like, and we'll give you a price, and then you just pay the price. And that report goes in your folder. Nobody else sees it. It's just yours. And you can run it as many times as you want. It's just a one-time fee, but I can't take time to write reports for everybody and every special need they have. You have to pay for those if you want something that's not generic. What Dennis asked for, price per square foot on a sale comp, and the date of the property, that makes total sense. But if you've taken a field and changed the name of it and you're doing something with it that nobody else is going to do, you have to pay for that to get a report, but we can do it. Selected transaction and closing documents. Not sure what that means.
That was, guys, talking about that estate compliance. That was addressing that. So you would want to be able to, in the Market Edge deal room, pick 5 deals, put them into a closed deal file, and then save it there or save it somewhere else.
Okay.
So
we don't have a way to do that yet.
Talk about that.
What are the plans for improving the REA Live Sync? And will the desktop version of RealNex continue to be supported in the future, or is it at the end of its life cycle? We are losing desktop people to the online version at a rate of about 25 to 30 a week. It's at its end cycle because people don't want to be tied to the desktop. They don't want to manage the server. They don't want to make backups. They don't want to be responsible for it going down. And you have to be in the office to use it. This is anywhere and everywhere. So just by virtue of the fact that it was a great program and we still have people using it, but they're moving off of it because they just don't want to be tied to the desktop anymore. So we're not updating the software. We're not dropping it, but we're not updating it. The things you're seeing in the online version will never be in the desktop. And eventually people will just, nobody will be paying for it. So it's going to kill itself. The sync is a real issue between the desktop and the web. So I suggest to anyone that unless they just have a real hate for the web, stop using the desktop and go to the web. There are not advantages to using the desktop anymore. It's on the web. It's fast. It's got features that you just don't even have, and the syncing is a challenge. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to get it to work correctly, and no matter how much time I spend on it, there's always issues with something not getting put up in the web or something not coming down. So I ask everyone I talk to, get off the desktop and go to the web, or just go desktop only if you don't want to go to the web. But using them together, it's just really difficult to get that sync to work correctly. So trying to be honest, I wish I could say I wrote perfect code and it didn't have any issues, but some people sync and they don't have issues, but for the most part, there's challenges trying to get that stuff to sync. The desktop shuts off, they're on the laptop and they pull the cord out and go home in the middle of the sync. The server goes down, there's a lightning storm and it fries their data, and then it syncs it up to the web and ruins the web. There's just so many things that could go wrong between those two that if you go to the web, you're better off.
Yeah, the plan though is it's not to end the desktop. Well, there still is a desktop. We still support the desktop. It's just the future is in the cloud. So we definitely would love everyone to migrate there, but we do have hundreds, if not, I'm sorry, thousands of users on the desktop, and we continue to work with them to help them manage and work through their life cycle and at the natural point of transition to migrate to the cloud. But certainly, as Tim said, there's so many advantages to the cloud that we'd love you all to join and take advantage of that platform fully, not be hindered by the potential quirks in the sync.
I can't believe all these people are staying on the call. You said it's almost 5 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock here. Let's see. Doug Jennings wants to know. We'll see an accounting system. I'll let Dee or Jeff speak to that after I do these other ones. That could, unfortunately, not all brokers are on RealNex. Idaho requires us to keep a separate ledger.
Yeah, while you're reviewing those, Doug, we don't intend to have an accounting system. We intend to interface with accounting, and we intend to have a full integration with a back office deal and commission management platform, so that all of the brokerage, distributions, collections, invoicing, payments through third parties or internal splits, and sales management accounting will be done within the RealNex umbrella, but that would then feed into QuickBooks or other accounting type of full accounting systems. And Tim, I'll let you wrap up these others. I think 100% cloud backup.
We're working on that, being able to back up to it'll be a format that I don't know what you'd use it for, but we will have a backup option pretty soon. It'll probably be a charge. It won't be free, but it'll run every night and back up your stuff and send it to you, just like Salesforce does. Same idea. I don't see anything else.
That's it. There's a few things, Nick. We'll
Yeah.
catch up with you. I think you've got details in, and we will respond separately to those inquiries. But let's see. Tim, do you have anything else?
Oh, I don't think
Wanna
so.
get back
The
to it?
questions just don't stop coming in, so I don't know. I don't
No,
know if
let's
we'll
wrap
ever
up.
be able to stop.
We are at the top of the hour. Great job. I mean, it's incredible the progress that's been made over the year, and we're at the beginning of a new one. There's going to be even greater progress to come this year. We appreciate all of you and your support and the value that you give us by giving us your ideas, suggestions, recommendations, the questions, and we want you all to join us on the user group to be even more interactive and dynamically engaged to build best practices, share them, and make sure everyone's making the most and making as much money and driving as much efficiency as you can in the marketplace. So thank you, Tim, for building it, and thank you all for supporting us. We appreciate it. Hope you all have a great day. Thank you, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.